In this playthrough of Pokemon LeafGreen, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke with only Pokemon that have regional forms. My hardcore Nuzlocke rules are as follows. I can only catch one Pokemon on every route, I cannot use items during battle, I have to play on set mode, I can't overlevel the next gym leader, and if a Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed. I think one of the coolest additions that Game Freak has made to Pokemon in recent years is the addition of regional variants to already existing Pokemon. Regional variants are a great way to breathe new life into older Pokemon without just adding new evolutions, and it's something that has stuck around through a fair few generations at this point, unlike a lot of other things that Game Freak has added over the years. But like a lot of additions Game Freak makes, Generation 1 has seen the most attention when it comes to regional forms. So LeafGreen is the perfect game to find out if a hardcore Nuzlocke is possible while only using Pokemon that have regional forms. So after naming our rival Poop because I couldn't think of anything else, Theron is ready to start her adventure. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, it really helps me out and lets me know you guys are enjoying. So our starter choice doesn't really matter this time around because he'll be being discarded as soon as we get our first encounter. I do decide on Bulbasaur though, so my rival will have Charmander, which I think makes him the most challenging throughout the game. With that out of the way, we can catch our real starter, a Rattata we name India. I think Rattata encapsulates what I love about regional forms, the fact there are a lot of them that are just a little bit ridiculous when it comes to design. Like Rattata just gets a mustache and a colour scheme change, and I can't help but love that. Our second encounter we catch in Viridian Forest, everybody's favourite mouse mascot not owned by Disney, Pikachu. Now Pikachu doesn't get a regional variant himself, but its evolution Raichu does, so I'm counting it as a usable encounter. Welcome to the team, Luxembourg. Now the more observant of you will have noticed the brick wall I'm about to run into in this run, which is the famous drying pan man himself, Brock. I don't get any more encounters till after this gym, so I'm gonna have to hope I get lucky here because Rattata and Pikachu aren't exactly equipped to deal with Brock's team. I decide my best bet is lowering Brock's Geodude's defense with Tail Whip so India can KO it without taking too much damage. This should leave him healthy enough to take down the Onix. I start going for Tail Whips, but Geodude keeps going for defense curls, meaning it's a bit of the back and forth. I eventually start going for quick attacks when Geodude has had its defenses lowered by a few stages. Luxembourg is able to bring the Geodude fairly low, but I am forced to switch out as tackle leaves her dangerously low. India comes in, but unfortunately Geodude has regained most of its defense with a few defense curls, meaning it takes 3 Hyper Fangs to KO. This means Geodude is able to get off 2 tackles before going down. Next is Onix, and this is still winnable with a bit of luck and a few misses from Brock. I start off with Tail Whip, which lowers Onix defense, and then get hit with a really hard Rock Tomb. A few more of those landing and this is all over. On the next turn I get off the second Tail Whip, and luckily Onix just goes through a bind. I then start hitting with Hyper Fangs as Onix misses a second bind. Onix then misses a Rock Tomb, meaning I'm able to bring it down to half health with the second Hyper Fang. I only need 2 more turns here and I should be able to win. Unfortunately though, on the next turn a Rock Tomb connects and India goes down. I keep Luxembourg alive briefly with a few double teams, but after 2 weak quick attacks a Rock Tomb connects, ending attempt 1. I decide if I want to give myself the highest chances of taking down Brock, I'm gonna need to EV train just a little bit here, which means grinding Mankeys to those sweet attack EVs. I'm able to grind about 100 EVs, give or take, without overleveling. This only gives me about 5 extra points in India's attack stats, but I have to take every advantage I can. Attempt 2 time. This time I decide it's not even worth trying to damage Geodude with Luxembourg, and I should instead get Geodude's defense as low as possible instead, before bringing in India. I get off 4 Tail Whips before getting crit into the red, and then decide on this attempt to let Luxembourg go down. This means I get off another Tail Whip before Geodude takes down Luxembourg. Luxembourg's sacrifice means that India is able to come in and take down Geodude with only 1 Hyper Fang and 1 quick attack, taking no damage. This puts me in a good position to take down Onix. I get off 5 Tail Whips before losing 2/3 of my HP. I then go for Hyper Fang, which does above half. This is looking really clean. I only need to get off 1 more Hyper Fang to win, but of course then Onix decides to connect with a Rock Tomb, ending attempt 2. Attempt 3 is my worst attempt yet, as we don't even bring Onix below half. Attempt 4 is going really well until I get unlucky with a Rock Tomb crit, and then attempt 5 and 6 aren't even worth discussing. It's attempt 7 where my luck holds out long enough to win the first gym badge. Thanks to getting lucky with Growl and Tail Whip, I'm able to take down the Geodude without taking much damage on Luxembourg or India. This allows me to bring Luxembourg back out and lower Onix's attack with Growl before using India to lower its defense. Then it's just a case of getting off 3 Hyper Fangs for the victory. Only took 7 attempts, but we eventually managed to win our first gym badge. Now let's hope we don't have to restart for the rest of this run, otherwise I have to do this all over again. With the first gym beaten, I can actually start filling out my team a bit more. We catch a Geodude we named Singapore in Mount Moon, and then right outside of Mount Moon on Route 4 we're able to catch an adorable Sandshrew we named Grease. Now I could challenge the second gym leader Misty right away, but if I head north to defeat my rival first, we're able to catch a few more encounters. So it's time for our first proper rival fight. Luckily it proves to be fairly straightforward. Singapore is easily able to take down Pidgeotto with a rock throw and a tackle. Charmander comes out next, and I completely forget it knows Metal Claw in this generation. Singapore luckily survives because had Metal Claw been a crit there, it would have 100% gotten the KO. Luckily it doesn't, and a single magnitude knocks out the Fire Lizard. Next is Arbor, which is completely free as it only knows Teleport, meaning a single Hyper Fang from India is able to take it out. Last is Poop's own Rattata, who is outsped and one hit KO'd with a Hyper Fang. My Rattata is clearly in the top percent. No one tell Joey. With our rival defeated, we're able to open up the rest of the game without fighting Misty and get some new encounters. Before that though, I should probably have done this before the fight, but thanks to our level cap of 21, we're able to evolve India into Raticate. We're then able to catch a Spearow on Route 6, which is not an eligible encounter under my rule set because Spearow doesn't get a regional form. However, if we head through Diglett Tunnel, he can be traded for something that does. A Pokemon that is literally just a duck with a leek in its mouth, Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd comes pre-named, so Ching Ding joins the team. On our way back through Diglett Cave, we catch a Diglett, unsurprisingly. While this Diglett doesn't have the amazing hair like its Alolan cousins, she should still be extremely useful, so Jamaica joins the team. Only one last encounter before the next gym, and Mr. Mime you can only get in the Vermilion Town if you trade an Arbor. Now, I decide if I catch an Arbor here without it teleporting, then I can get this encounter, but if it teleports away, I'll have to wait till Celadon, where I'm guaranteed one from the game corner. Somehow, I managed to catch Arbor with one Pokeball without it teleporting. This never happens when I actually want to use Arbor, but oh well, this means I can add Mimim to the team slightly early. With that, it's time to battle Misty, and this fight can be a bit tricky because of Starmie, as it's no joke, but I'm hoping my now filled out team can pull off a win. So we start off with Luxembourg, who gets off a really strong Thunder Shot. It just misses the KO, but luckily Staryu just goes the Harden. This means on the next turn Misty heals, but a second Thunder Shot brings the Staryu back into the red, and then on the next turn, a third Thunder Shock takes down Misty's first Pokemon. One down, one to go. Starmie comes out and outspeeds, hitting Luxembourg with a Water Pulse that very nearly gets a one-hit KO. Luxembourg survives and gets off a Thunder Shock that unfortunately does less than half. I don't have a choice here and have to risk a crit on India on the switch. Luckily, I avoid a crit and getting confused by Water Pulse, meaning India is able to tank the Water Pulse on just above half HP. I then have to take the same risk again, which luckily pays off as I avoid a crit and confusion for a second time, meaning India is able to get off a really strong Hyper Fang, which just misses the KO but leaves Starmie low enough to where India is able to finish it off with a quick attack on the next turn. That could have gone so wrong so very easily, but luckily India was able to pull through and win us our second gym badge. Before we can face the next gym leader, we have to rub an old man's back, which sure, if you're into that kind of thing. Unfortunately, Poop isn't, and he challenges us to another battle. This fight is a breeze though. Pidgeotto goes down to 2 Thunder Shots from Luxembourg, Raticate goes down to a single tackle and magnitude from Singapore, Charmeleon goes down to 2 Hyper Fangs from India, Kadabra could be kinda scary, but it goes down to a single Hyper Fang before it is able to get off any strong psychic attacks. Our reward for defeating Pooh is rubbing an old man's back and then the stupidest gym puzzle in all of Pokemon. Such joy. I hate this gym puzzle so much, it always takes forever. Or I'll get it in 17 seconds. Before we fight Surge, Grease is able to evolve into Sandslash, whose moveset is probably the worst I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. Look at this. Anyway, on to the third gym leader, Surge, who appears to be suffering from PTSD, which is a strange thing to have in a kid's game, but Surge starts off with Voltorb and I start off with Jamaica. With a bit of luck, Jamaica could probably sweep this entire gym, so let's see how this goes. I start the fight outspeeding with Magnitude, easily one-shotting the Voltorb. Next is Pikachu, who gets off a quick attack but then goes down to a single dig. Last is Raichu, who could be slightly annoying if he gets off too many double teams. I go through a dig as Raichu gets off 2 double teams, but luckily Dig still connects, bringing Raichu into the red. On the next turn, Sarge heals and I land a Magnitude, which high rolls and is able to one-hit the Raichu. Nice and easy, this attempt really is the lucky attempt. With that out of the way, we've got our third gym badge. Kanto's map really opens up after this point, so I won't bother mentioning any encounters I get but don't use. This means we only get one more notable encounter before the next gym, a Vulpix I named Venezuela. Thanks to the department store in Celadon City, we have access to evolution stones, meaning we can immediately evolve Venezuela into Ninetales and Luxembourg into Raichu. We can also evolve Singapore into Groudler. With that, it's time for the fourth gym, and I'll be honest, it's not the most difficult fight in the world. Venezuela sets Erica's Victory Bell on fire and then does the same to her Tangela. Fire Plume does survive the flamethrower, but only long enough for it to get off the stun spore, and then one acid before going down to 2 more flamethrowers. Nice and simple, fourth gym done. Our level cap then jumps to 43, which is slightly mad, meaning we can evolve Jamaica into Dugtrio, and then we're ready to battle Koga, who we're able to completely destroy with Minum. Koffing goes down to a single Psybeam, Mutt goes down to 2 Psybeams, Koga's second Koffing goes down to a single Psybeam. Koga's Weezing survives 1 Psybeam, meaning it is able to get off a strong Sludge, but on the next turn after Koga heals, a second Psybeam crits, winning us the 5th gym badge. These mid-game gym fights are a lot easier than the first couple. While we do have the rival fight and the Team Rocket Silphco arc to deal with before the 6th gym, honestly our level advantage makes these fights trivial, so we're just going to cut them. We do get one more encounter before the next gym, a Slowpoke we catch in Celadon City. Thanks to our level cap, we're immediately able to evolve Cambodia into Slowbro, who just looks so happy to be here. Look at that little face. Anyway, we're now ready for the 6th gym leader, Sabrina. This fight is interesting because if she wants to, Sabrina can probably end this entire run with Alakazam, but her AI is often a bit dumb, so let's see how this goes. I start off with Cambodia and Sabrina starts off with Kadabra. Unsurprisingly, Kadabra outspeeds, but it just goes to Future Sight, meaning Cambodia is able to get off the Surf and cleanly one-shot the Kadabra. Up next is everyone's favourite psychic Pokemon, Venomoth. I assume it has bug moves, so I switch into Venezuela, who takes a whopping 3 damage from a Leech Life. Venezuela is then able to outspeed and get a one-hit KO with the Flamethrower. Mr. Mime is up next, and as he gets sent out, Venezuela takes the Future Sight that Kadabra set up on turn 1. Luckily it barely does any damage, so we're able to keep Venezuela in and get off a Flamethrower that very nearly gets the KO as Mr. Mime goes through a Calm Mind. Luckily we get a crit right when we need one on the next turn, rendering Sabrina's Calm Mind useless and letting Venezuela get another KO. Next up is Alakazam, and I'm going to need a bit of luck to take this thing out deathless. Alakazam starts off with a Calm Mind, which means the Flamethrower we're using doesn't do a huge amount of damage. I do get off the burn however, so lucky attempt 7 is still clearly in play. I'm worried that a +1 special attack, Alakazam might get the KO on Venezuela with Psychic, so I switch into Minum. As I switch, luckily Sabrina just uses a full heal to cure Alakazam's burn. I didn't even know she carried those, to be honest. Oh well, lucky break there, means I get Minum in for 3. Even luckier is that on the next turn I somehow outspeed and get the KO with a single Shadow Ball. If Alakazam wanted violence that could have been bad, I'm really surprised that we got through that deathless. 6th gym badge done. We've got 2 gyms left, and the first of which is Blaine. Blaine isn't too difficult with a half-decent water type, and Cambodia is better than half-decent. Blaine starts off with Growlithe, which gets a bite off before going down to a single Surf. Next, Growlithe's big brother comes out and gets off a bite that leaves Cambodia just below half before suffering the same fate as his younger sibling, going down to a single Surf. Third is Ponyta, who gets off a weak stomp before going down to a single Surf. Last is Rampadash, who if he gets a crit and a burn could probably take down Cambodia here as she's on such low health, but I decide to take the risk as I haven't lost a single Pokemon this entire run. Rampadash does land Fire Blast and does get the burn, but luckily it doesn't crit. Never punished. Cambodia then gets the one shot on Rampadash with a single Surf. 7th gym badge down, 1 more to go. Now, if my strategy of going for the Surf and getting one-shots got you a bit hot and bothered under the collar, you're going to love this gym fight. Giovanni starts with Rhyhorn, who gets taken down by a single Surf. Dugtrio gets off a hilariously weak Earthquake and then gets taken down by a second single Surf. Nidoqueen gets off a very slightly stronger Earthquake before going down to a single Surf. Nidoking does the exact same thing and then goes down to a single Surf. And then Giovanni's last Rhyhorn comes out, and if you guessed it goes down to a single Surf, shockingly, you'd be correct. No idea how you could have guessed that. With that underwhelming final gym done, we've got all the gym badges and are ready to take on the Elite Four. Now, I decide because this run has been going so well and the level cap of 58 will probably mean I walk all over the Elite Four, I decide to set my level cap at the slightly lower 55 instead, just to keep things interesting. Before we get to the Elite Four though, we do have one more fight with our rival, and his team has been slightly upgraded since we last saw him on the SS Anne, and he's no longer a pushover. Who starts with Pidgeot, who gets off a quick attack before going down to a single Thunderbolt from Luxembourg. Next is Rhyhorn, so I switch into Minum, who takes a decent amount of damage on the switch from a Body Slam. On the next turn, however, Minum is able to get off the 4 times effective Magical Leaf that one-shots the Rhyhorn. Third is Execute. You can't really threaten Minum, so I decide to stay in, get off a strong Psychic that does over half, despite being resisted, before being put to sleep. I decide it's not worth playing around with sleep, so I switch into Chingding as Execute starts setting up Solar Beam. This is perfect because now on the next turn I can outspeed with Fly, avoid the Solar Beam, and then on the next turn get the KO with the Fly. Then Alakazam comes out. It immediately goes to Disable, which luckily misses, meaning we're able to get off a Fly. On the next turn, Alakazam goes to Calm Mind as Fly leaves him with about a third of his HP. On the next turn, Alakazam goes for a Psychic, and we managed to survive on 5 HP. Jesus, that was close. Alakazam then goes for a Future Sight as Lycanex, taking down the Spoon-Bending Nightmare. Pooh then sends out Gyarados, so I switch into Luxembourg, who gets hit by a rather weak Twister on the switch in, and then able to outspeed and one-shot with a Thunderbolt. Gyarados really isn't that threatening before the physical Special Splitter. Pooh's down to his last Pokemon, Charizard. As Charizard comes out, Luxembourg takes the Future Sight and is very nearly taken out by it. This fight is getting a little too close to comfort. Luckily, I'm now safe to bring in Cambodia, who tanks 2 wing attacks and a Flamethrower, and is able to bring down the Charizard with 2 Surfs. Well, we pulled off a win that only just got out of that without any casualties. It's time for the Elite Four. Let's see who we're bringing. Luxembourg, the Raichu, Minun, the Mr. Mime, Cambodia, the Slowbro, Venezuela, the Ninetales, Jamaica, the Doug Trio, and India, the Raticate. First up in this Elite Four is Lorelei, the Ice-type trainer that has a majority Water types. Lorelei starts off with Dugong, and I start off with Luxembourg. I start off by getting off a strong Thunderbolt that just misses the KO, and Dugong hits back with a Surf that leaves Luxembourg just above half HP. Lorelei then heals, so 2 more Thunderbolts are enough to take out the Dugong. Second is Cloyster, who goes down to a single Thunderbolt. Unsure why Lorelei thought sending out a second Water type would be a good idea, but sure. Third is Slowbro. Lorelei really not learning her lesson here. Slowbro is tanky enough to survive the Thunderbolt, and that means she's able to get off a really hard Surf that would have KO'd had it crit. Bit of a close one there. Thankfully, Luxembourg survives and is able to take out the Slowbro with a second Thunderbolt on the following turn. Lorelei's second to last Pokemon is Lapras, so I switch into Minun. On the switch, Lapras gets off a strong Ice Beam. I then go through a super effective Magical with a Leaf that really doesn't do much, and then take a Body Slam that leaves Minun low enough to where I'm going to need to switch. I decide on Cambodia, who should be able to take a hit from this Lapras fairly easily. On the switch, I take a weak Body Slam before going for a Yawn, as I take a second weak Body Slam. I then take a third Body Slam, and the damage is starting to add up, but luckily, after a Psychic that causes Lapras to heal with a Berry, she falls asleep. This lets me get off a second Psychic that crits, meaning Lorelei is down to her last Pokemon, Jinx. I immediately switch into Venezuela and annoyingly get hit with a Lovely Kiss. Venezuela then decides to nap for 2 turns, getting hit with some weak Ice Punches. On the third turn, Venezuela stays asleep and gets hit by an Attract, because this Jinx wasn't already being a pain to hit. Of course, Venezuela then wakes up and is immobilized by Love. This lets Jinx get off a third Ice Punch, and after getting hit this many times, it's starting to wear Venezuela down. I then get immobilized by Love for a second time, meaning Venezuela gets put into the red by another Ice Punch. I'm now forced to switch into India without getting off a single hit. On the switch, India gets hit by an Ice Punch that does over half. This is really bad. The rest of my team's low enough where I have to let my rat go down here or risk losing someone else. So I salute my brave little rat that gets off a strong strength that just misses the KO before being hit by a second Ice Punch that must have low rolled because somehow India survives on full HP. This means that on the next turn, Lorelei heals the Jinx back to full health, but a quick attack and a strength on the following turn are enough to finish it off. That was way closer than it should have been, and we only just scraped through deathless. Let's hope the rest of these fights go a bit better. Up next is Bruno, who I'm hoping will be a lot easier than Lorelei. I start with Cambodia, and Bruno starts off with Onyx. Luckily, we've moved past the point of Onyx's being scary, so Onyx gets off a laughably weak Earthquake before going down to a single Surf. Hitmonchan is next, who is able to get off the Sky Uppercut that does next to nothing before going down to a single crit Psychic. Third is Hitmonlee, who misses a Mega Kick before being brought into the red with a single Psychic. This means on the next turn, Bruno heals before I can get off the Surf that brings Hitmonlee back to below half HP. On the next turn, Mega Kick lands, and it actually does a decent amount of damage before a Surf takes Hitmonlee down. Second to last is Bruno's second Onyx, and I'm low enough to where I don't want to take any risk, so I switch into Minun, who takes a weak Earthquake on the switch before getting one shot with a Magical Leaf on the next turn. Bruno is down to his last Pokemon, Machamp. Machamp can be kinda scary, but luckily a single Psychic brings it into the red, and Machamp just goes to bulk up. This means another Psychic is enough to give us the win. That was so much easier than the first fight. Unfortunately, Agatha is up next and she won't go down as easy. I start off with Cambodia and Agatha starts off with Gengar. Gengar gets off a Toxic before going down to a single Psychic. Now Toxic would be fine here because I planned to give Cambodia a berry, but I kind of forgot to equip it. That's going to make this a little bit more difficult. Second is Golbat, so I switch into Luxembourg, who takes a weak bite on the switch. Luckily, Golbat gets paralyzed, meaning on the next turn I can outspeed and one-shot with a Thunderbolt. Up next is Arbok, so I switch into Jamaica, who dodges a Screech on the switch and then just misses the KO by literally a pixel with an Earthquake, meaning Arbok is able to land a Screech. Agatha then heals, so it's just a case of landing 2 more Earthquakes for the KO. Next is Haunter, so I switch into Minun. On the switch I get hit with the Hypnosis, and now normally I would try to stay in and wake up, but unfortunately I'm a bit scared of Mean Look, Curse, and a Hypnosis combination here taking me out, so I decide to switch into Cambodia. On the switch, Cambodia gets hit with a Curse, which on top of toxic damage is really bad. I decided that Haunter can't use Curse anymore because it's used half of its HP, meaning it's fairly safe to switch back into Minun. On the switch I get locked in with Mean Look. This could be bad. On the following turn, Minun stays asleep and I get hit with Dream Eater, which doesn't do a lot of damage but does heal Haunter just enough to now before it can use Curse again. To be completely honest, I forgot Haunter had Dream Eater. I then stay asleep through a second turn and get hit with another weak Dream Eater. I then stay asleep through a third turn and get hit with a Curse. This is really bad. I need Minum to wake up here. On the next turn, Agatha heals Haunter and Minum stays asleep, sealing his fate. Curse brings Minum low enough to where there's no way I can survive another turn even if it does wake up and knock out the Haunter, and I can't switch him out due to Mean Look. So I click Psychic one last time knowing Minum is doomed, and Minum's final act to wake up and one-shot the Haunter. Unfortunately, this is one turn too late and Curse then takes down Minum. Losing a Pokemon to sleep luck sucks, but at least Agatha is down to her last Pokemon, a single Gengar. I switch into India and go through a Pursuit, and of course immediately get put to sleep with Hypnosis. I decide I don't want to play around with Sleep Luck a second time this match and switch into Venezuela, who takes a strong Sludge Bomb on the switch. I then get hit with a second Sludge Bomb that poisons, leaving Venezuela dangerously low. I do manage to retaliate with a Flamethrower, which doesn't do as much as I was hoping if I'm honest. I now have to switch out again, back into India, and just hope he wakes up. Unfortunately though, on the switch, India gets crit and very nearly gets taken down. This is really bad. I decide I'm going to have to risk Jamaica, who tanks a Sludge Bomb fairly well on the switch. On the next turn, she outspeeds and lands a Rock Tomb that crits, but just misses the KO, meaning Gengar survives and lands a Shadow Ball that takes down Jamaica. Rest in peace Jamaica, you were so close to getting that KO. If only I bothered to teach you Rock Slide. Luckily, Jamaica's sacrifice means I can safely now bring in Luxembourg, who, thanks to the speed drop from Rock Tomb, is able to outspeed and finish off the Gengar with a Thunderbolt. That's the third member of the Elite Four down, but it took two of my teammates to pull off the win, meaning the next two fights are going to get very close. Lance is up next with his always scary dragon types. He starts off with Gyarados and I start off with Luxembourg, who is easily able to outspeed and one-shot with a Thunderbolt. Next is the first of Lance's two Dragonairs. I start chipping away with Thunderbolts as Dragonair hits back with an Outrage. On the second turn, I'm brought low enough to where I have to switch, but luckily Outrage ends with using Dragonair while also paralysing him. This means that it's pretty safe to bring India for 3. There's no way this thing gets through Paralyze and Confusion, right? Of course it does, and India gets hit with a really hard Hyper Beam. Luckily on the next turn I can outspeed and finish off the first of Lance's two Dragonairs with the Strength. Lance then immediately sends out his second, and India proves his worth by outspeeding and one-shotting with a crit. Unfortunately though, Lance's next Pokemon is Dragonite, and I don't have a choice here but to sacrifice India. So India goes through a final Strength, chipping away at the Dragonite before being taken down by an Outrage. Rest in peace India, you might have not have had a mustache, but you always have a place in my heart. India's sacrifice means I can safely bring Cambodia in, and I'm worried Ice Beam won't KO, so I start off by going for Yawn or tanking an Outrage. Outrage then ends, meaning Dragonite is confused. This means that on the next turn he hurts himself in confusion, and then an Ice Beam is enough to finish him off. The Yawn was a bit pointless there, but we got the KO. Last is Aerodactyl, which really can't threaten Cambodia unless it gets an Omni boost, so it's safe to go through an Ice Beam here. Ancient Power connects, but luckily it doesn't get an Omni boost, meaning Cambodia can one-shot with an Ice Beam. That's Lance and the Elite Four taken down, and only cost me half my team. This last fight is going to be a 3v6, so let's see how this goes. I start off with Cambodia and Poop starts off with Pidgeot. Pidgeot starts with the Sand attack, but luckily Cambodia breaks through and hits a hard Ice Beam. Pidgeot then goes through a weak Aerial Ace before being taken down by a second Ice Beam. Luckily having Cambodia out baits Blue into sending out Gyarados because of its super effective bite, meaning I'm safe to switch into Luxembourg, who tanks the Dragon Rage and then one-shots with the Thunderbolt. Third is Rhyhorn, and unfortunately there's nothing I can do here but let Luxembourg go down. So Luxembourg goes through a final quick attack as a fuck you to my rival before going down to an Earthquake. Cambodia is then able to come in, take a lot from an Earthquake, but get the one shot on the Rhydon with the Surf. Fourth is Executor, so I switch into Venezuela, who tanks a weak Giga Drain on the switch, and then go through a Flamethrower that just misses the KO. This allows Executor to land a Sleep Powder, but this time I actually remembered to give my Pokemon berries, so the sleep is cured immediately. This means on the next turn Poop wastes a Full Restore, as I'm immediately able to bring Executor back into the red with Flamethrower, and then finish it off with a third Flamethrower on the following turn. Fifth is Alakazam, and if I don't get lucky here I will just lose. Turn 1, Alakazam goes through Reflect as we get off a strong Flamethrower. Great start. On the next turn, Alakazam goes through a Future Sight. This is what I needed. He's throwing a second Flamethrower, then crits, bringing down the Alakazam. I can't emphasize enough that if Alakazam had gone for attacking moves there would have been no chance of me winning. Luckily though, Blue is down to his last Pokemon, Charizard. Charizard goes for a Fire Blast, which does nothing thanks to Flash Fire, and then Venezuela hits a powered up Flamethrower, which doesn't do a lot. Charizard then hits a fairly hard Slash as we hit a second weak Flamethrower. Unfortunately, Venezuela then takes a Future Sight attack, meaning on the next turn Charizard is able to get the KO with the second Slash. Rest in peace Venezuela, we're down to our last Pokemon, Cambodia. Charizard lands an Aerial Ace that doesn't crit or flinch, meaning Cambodia survives and gets the KO with the Surf. I can't believe how close that was there at the end, but we managed to pull off a win. That wasn't the hardest run in the world after the first couple gyms until the Elite Four, but it was still really fun to use Pokemon I don't really use like Ninetales and Mr. Mime. I hope if you've made it this far you enjoyed watching, and remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thanks again for watching, it really is appreciated. I'll see you all next time.